This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of Make It Happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I am joined by my co-host, my brosif, Joshua Ryan Rusin, community director at Jake Gino. Josh, how are you today?
Gino, doing well. Very excited about a lot of the upcoming events we got going on. We got some money mixers, we got some boot camps, and just things are moving and shaking. What are you excited about?
I'm excited about today's guest for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's got a great name. It's even better than my name. That's the first thing. Second thing is we have so much in common. I didn't even know all the things we have in common. The third thing is I really want to hit about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset on this podcast. I've been reading a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, and it's really helped me to become a better parent, thinking about how to speak to our kids and how to really focus on why do some people succeed and why do some people fail. So I'm going to jump into all those topics in the podcast. So without further ado, Mr. Rusin, can you please announce today's kick-ass guest?
All right. Today we have Francesco Guarino. So he's currently a managing director of operations for an NYC-based alternative investment manager with over 15 years experience in the alternative asset management and fintech industries. Francesco got started in multifamily investing back in 2010 with the purchase of a mom and pop owned fourplex in northern New Jersey. Over the next 7 years, he earned his MBA from Rutgers Business School while self-managing his first property. He then refi enrolled into a second fourplex on the same block, purchasing it directly from the property owners in 2017. He recently acquired a third fourplex in the same neighborhood in an off-market deal from two retiring parents, bringing his portfolio to 12 doors. Welcome to the show, Francesco.
Welcome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I want to get a little bit into your background, right? So obviously you do well in your career and your wife does as well. When did real estate get into the picture? 2010. How did you buy a fourplex? Why? Walk us through the whole thing.
So, I live in northern New Jersey, grew up here, and my wife and I met, and we were living in a condo up in Bergen County, or Hudson County in Union City, New Jersey. And we owned the condo, and we were looking to buy a house. We were going to start our family. We just got married, and we're looking to buy a house. And as we were looking, it was a great time to buy because it was, everything was took a hit at that time. And so we were looking to buy a short sale. And right before we got a response from the bank after our offer, my father-in-law pulled me aside, and he had two families, smaller multifamilies and other commercial stuff. And he pulled me aside and he's like, listen, before you go get yourself into a big mortgage and get everything going, he's like, I really think you should look at buying a multifamily and get into it. Now, I had no background in landlording or anything. My father wasn't into it. My dad's a pizza guy. And so he talked me into it. And instead of putting the down payment on the house, I took that money and started shopping for a multifamily. And at the time, everything was hitting the market. There was a lot of people just trying to get out of the multifamily market. And where I am in Union County, New Jersey, there's a lot of multifamily buildings around there. And so we picked up a 4-unit building that was a disaster. It was two sisters that inherited the property and wanted nothing to do with it. So they didn't know how to manage it. They didn't know what to do. And there was a lot of problems. There was a lot of deferred maintenance. There was a horde of cats living outside the building. Tenants were running the show. And so, here I am, like 28 years old, and my father-in-law was like, yeah, buy this. And I was like, okay. So we bought it. We got it at a good deal. And I went in and learned the ropes. And that's what I started doing. And I just threw myself into it. No education, no nothing.
The big question is, what did your wife say when you said we're buying a multifamily? That's a tough one, because if I told that to my wife when we first got married, I actually saved to build a house, and I should have done what you did, but yeah, she would have been like,
I think it helped that my father-in-law was in my corner and was the one driving it. I was kind of fortunate because he has kind of mentored me and took me under his wing. And it was great because it gave me a little confidence knowing that I had this mentor that was going to take me through it. But he's also the type that he's not going to do it for you. And so, I was in there and he was showing me, he would give me pointers here and there and give me advice, but, it was on me to get it done. And, that was the thing. I think my wife was on board because of that. And so we put on hold, like all the plans of, buying a house and doing all that stuff. So at the time I was not working in my current job. I was in a different, working for a different company. And I was also doing my MBA part-time at Rutgers in Newark. So I was doing that at night, and we were having our first child. So it was a lot at one time, but you're 28, you can handle it. You do it. You do what you got to do.
So Francesco, it's not that you're 28; it's that it's never the right time, right, Josh?
Yeah.
We always talk about this. You're either too young, you don't have credibility, you're too old, people don't take you seriously, you're having a kid. It's almost like having a kid.
Yeah.
It's never the right time to have a child. So
I think I was just like naive, I didn't know any better. And so I wasn't even scared about the multifamily and buying this property that needed all this work and every unit had to be turned. And so that's what we did. I went in and started tacking one unit at a time. It was only 4 units, but there was a lot to do. And that's what I did. I learned one step by step. Now, I did have a little experience prior to that. The condo we were in, I was the president of the association. And I had to hire, it was a brand new building. And we were one of the first people to buy into the building. And there was no condo board. There was nothing. So I was like, you know what, I'll do it. I became the president of the board, had to hire the management company, had to work with the builder. There was a lot of stuff that still hadn't been done. So I had a little experience from that aspect, like, just dealing with people complaining about stuff. The people in the building were coming to me and saying, hey, this isn't working. Hey, that's not working. So I had to coordinate with the builder or coordinate with our management company. So that helped out a little bit, but it was tough, but I think it helped that I just went in blind and I didn't know any better. It really helped.
So Francesco, when after buying that first deal, you came out and you went to seek Jake and Gino. I remember having that conversation with you. What made you join the community, and what benefits have you really derived from the community?
So I think when I was starting out, there was none of this stuff, right? There was the podcast. There wasn't a lot of real estate podcasts. It was all flipping stuff that I saw. It was nothing multifamily really oriented. And then I remember it's funny because I was like mowing my lawn and I used to just listen to podcasts and I used to listen to Bigger Pockets. And I hear these 2 guys, Jake and Gino, that are, you guys were talking about like your first deal. And I remember like, you were talking about like the I'm a mentality and you guys were, and I was dying because I was like, wow, these guys, it's you're New Yorkers. So I got that right away. And the mindset and everything. And, I was just like, wow, like this is great that, these guys are doing this. And then they went to Tennessee and this guy had a pizzeria and he's down there. And like, so that really was inspiring. And then I looked more into you guys and saw what you were about and saw that you guys were, Wheelbarrow Profits was starting to take off at that time. And so I just kind of dabbled in that and reached out to you guys and started doing some of the lessons and learning a lot of the stuff. And then finally, in 2018, I went to your event in Nashville, which was great because you get to really see other people that are doing it and get to meet all those people that went through the same experiences, went through the same thing. And I think when you do that, you really see that you're not alone doing this. There's other people that are in the same boat. And then shortly after that, I started, I met Jason Yarusi. So and his whole meetup, which is actually literally nearby in the town next to me, which is really fortunate. So I connect with them. So it's a small community. I think everyone, it's a small world in terms of this whole multifamily community. So
what did you mentioned that your cousin came down also. Let's talk about the fixed mindset before we talk about the events and everything. What did people say to you when you said, I'm going into multifamily and I'm going to Nashville to look at some deals with my cousin? I mean, what was the reaction from people that you knew?
I mean, a lot of people are, they think it's a waste of time. They're like, you're crazy. You live in New Jersey, you have a job up here, your family's up here. Like, why would you even think about going somewhere else? And I've learned over the years, like, you just got to do your own thing. Like the more even with my own dad, right? Like my dad is, when I bought my first property, he thought I was nuts. You know, he
Mm-hmm.
was like really pissed off at me. He's like, you don't know anything about landlording. Tenants are going to run your life, this and that. And then, you know, little by little, he came on board and was fine with it. And then when I got the second one, when I was buying the second one, I told him, oh, I'm going to buy the next property next door. And he's like, you're, you know, now you're stretching yourself, this, you know. And then by the time I just closed on my third one, I didn't even tell him, you know, I just called him up one day. I was like, hey, I need you to go buy that property and take a look at all the masonry. You know, he's a mason. And so he was like, oh, why, are you looking to buy it? I'm like, no, I bought it already. You know, I don't even tell him anymore. I just, because there's always going to be that negativity, you know, or they're scared. They have a scared mindset. So, you know, I think I just kind of I just kind of block it out and do what I got to do.
So Francesco, I need to share this with you because our stories are so eerily similar. It's
Yeah.
like frightening because my first deal I bought in Rochester, I bought 2 duplexes back in like 2009, 2010, never told my mom. And when she finds out, the first thing she says is, how are you going to feed your family? I'm like, it's 2 duplexes. If I don't start, I don't know what I don't know.
Exactly.
And I didn't lose money because a couple of years prior to that, I lost money on a deal, and she still to this day can't let it go. I'm like, you know the movie Frozen, just sing "Let It Go," because just let it go, because ultimately it's our responsibility. I screwed up. The guy that I partnered with was a dirtbag, but you know what, Maserati Mike, if you're out there listening, you know you're a dirtbag. But ultimately, I'm the one who didn't vet him, right? And so I've learned that the growth mindset, take responsibility. I mean, the fixed mindset would have been like be bitter and not do anything about it. I had the growth mindset where I said I wanted to learn multifamily. So fast forward to 2013, I buy my first deal with Jake. I'm intimate with my mother. I've been in business with her for 25 years. She knows everything. I did not tell her I was in real estate until I had 200 units with Jake a year and a half into buying our deals. Yeah. And when I told her I had 200 units, she looked at me like she didn't understand what 200 units was. I said, Mom, it's 3 different properties. I'm cash flowing that and I have my plan in place. And to you, I didn't tell anybody because it was my plan, and I didn't want anyone to knock me off the growth mindset and say, you don't know. Obviously, you don't know. We go to college for 4 years to learn to get a job and then go on a job to train. So for me, it was frustrating because I'm like, I have 200 units. And then all of a sudden, the momentum starts. And I'm like, you know, a year later, I'm like, I'm leaving the restaurant. And she couldn't fathom it. And I'm like, you always told me, you know, it was risky and this and that. And you have to do what you have to do, like you said. And then ultimately, I end up leaving. And she still to this day doesn't really know what I do. She came to Multifamily Mastery 3. She's like, what do you do? I'm like, Mom, you listen to podcasts, you listen, I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? So she's in that fixed mindset from that generation where things worked really well, and it was different back then. And I think the economy is completely different. I think everything's different. So for you, it's important to become part of, whether it's a Yarusi community, a Jake and Gino community, to be surrounded by like-minded individuals who are doing what you want to do and not telling you it's not possible, because anything's possible. You need to be around people who can mentor you, who can help you, and who can share the same story. And listening to that's probably why you resonated with us and I resonate with you, because I get on, I listen to your story, and it's exactly like mine. And if I listen to people telling me it's not possible, you're a pizza guy, you know nothing about landlord. Of course I know nothing about landlording. I'm flipping pizzas, but I can learn because it's not rocket science. I'm not working for NASA, putting a rocket up into orbit. So what made you, once you did that, and your father, how was the relationship with your father? Does he look at you and I go, wow, you're taking a lot of risk? Or
yeah, I think he's very risk averse, right? And so he's had deals that have gone bad. He's bought restaurants that deals have gone sour. But I think also he didn't approach it, from a business point of view, right? He doesn't have that training. He doesn't have that mindset. So, he's a great worker, right? You ask him to build something. You want to build a brick wall, he'll build it for you. Build it beautiful. You want him to run the restaurant for you, he'll run it, right? But from a business standpoint, that's not his forte. And so I think, that those experiences now are, kind of have affected him. And so, he doesn't want me taking extra risks. Whereas like my father-in-law, he's the other side, right? I always tell people it's like I had the rich dad, poor dad mentality in real life, because once my father-in-law came into the picture, he's more about investing, planting seeds, doing that stuff, and not taking big risks, but at the same time, doing what you have to do, making investments for the future, planning for the future. And so that was a great that was a great, when he came into my life, it was great because he took me under his wing and kind of, mentored me into making these investments and making these moves outside of just my job.
So, Francesco, I'm going to pose a question to all the listeners out there, and I really want it to play devil's advocate. Is it risky to start something new and to start a new venture, or is it risky to continue on the path that you've continued on, having a 3-hour commute, living in a state with the highest taxes in the nation, and they're only going to go higher? The quality of living, the cost of living is only increasing. Not investing in yourself and not trying to take risks out there. What's more riskier? To me, Francesco, when I was at the restaurant was a lot riskier because everything was changing. Demographics was changing. The way people eat. Now you have Grubhub delivering it. Now you have HealthFresh bringing you food there. Now you have different competition. Whole Foods is making pizza. So what was riskier in my thing? Continue what I was doing and stay there? Like everyone says, you have a W-2 job. That's not risky. That's just as risky as being an entrepreneur because you have to sell yourself every day to your employer. It's becoming more costly as an employee. So if you're not doing the job, they're going to cut you. And on top of that, an employee pays the highest tax rate. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. So looking at it from that perspective, what are your thoughts on it when people say, hey, real estate's risky?
No, I agree with you. I think, look, you can have a career and have a W-2 job and be doing it for 15 years. And then there could be layoffs, right? Like that's like Jake's story, right? Jake, he saw that coming, right? When's my turn going to come? And I think that's, staying in a high tax state or environment or wherever you might be, domicile, and continuing to just not plan for the future and think ahead. I think, what you said about you saw all these things coming down the pike in New York and what was gonna come. Yeah, I agree with you. It's more risky to do that, but it's tough when you're raised or grow up around a mindset of like, don't take risks, and risks being investments, right? Or big investments or whatever it might be. And so, you have to get past that. And luckily, I've had mentors and people around me in my life that, I've seen other examples. So it's been great.
So for that event, you came in Nashville. What did you take away from it? It was a money mixer, part of the Jake and Gino community. We had a bus tour. We went to go see 2 different properties. There was about 60 students there, and we learned something on that bus tour on how the operator turned units and how the operator is using certain management principles that we are actually turned. What did you learn? And I love your cousin's name, Biagio. Such a nice Italian name.
Yeah, he came down with me to the event as well. And, he hadn't done any investments yet, but he was, very interested and came down with me. And, I think it was eye-opening for me. And I think also for him in terms of seeing, just everyone that's in the game, everyone that's doing it, and how their approach is, and everyone has their own approach and everyone has different, strategies. So I think you can always find someone that is in the same place as you or is a few steps ahead of you, and it's great to get exposure to all those people. But I think one of the biggest things was getting all the topics right. You can go out there and study things in the books and stuff, but when you see them in practice, when you go on those bus tours and you see what's going on and how the operator's doing it, you really need that, because unless you've been through it yourself, and if you're starting out and a newbie and you haven't done the turns and you haven't gone in and renovated a unit or seen how it's being done in practice, that's really helpful and it's a great resource, which wasn't there. I mean, I think these things existed, but it wasn't as prevalent. It wasn't as accessible as it is right now.
I want everyone that's listening on the podcast, just Google the cone of learning. And when you Google the cone of learning, you're going to see how we learn as people, right? I mean, most people learn by doing, by being actually out on the field and doing. You can listen to podcasts, you can read books, you can read blogs, you can watch training videos. Those are all really good ways, but your retention is not as well. But when you get on a bus, Francesco, with Gino or with Bill Ham or with Josh, and you're talking real estate and you're actually seeing it. And when you walk into a unit and you're seeing that the cabinets aren't there, and you know what? By you painting those cabinets and not ripping them down, you're saving a couple grand. By resurfacing the countertops, I'm not having to change countertops. I can resurface them by putting vinyl plank flooring instead of putting expensive flooring in, by using a two-tone paint scheme, and by seeing what kind of fixtures that they use. That's something that you're going to see, and you're actually going to experience it, and you're actually doing it. That's such a better way to learn. And if you can have that access and be part of a community, there's no other way to learn other than that. I mean, using all the other layers is obviously important to build, but if you really want to truly learn, getting on site and having these tours and these boot camps and all that is really going to accelerate your learning.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've learned too, like just, I've three buildings now. I've done almost 12 apartment renovations. Had to go in, and these are, I'm buying stuff that is huge deferred maintenance, needs complete makeover. And each time, like starting out, if I was someone who needed to have a contractor come in and tell me what to do, you're going to lose your shirt, right? Because they're going to have you doing things. These guys are used to doing renovations for, homeowners, and they're not used to working with landlords or working with real estate investors. And so you've got to be the one to dictate to them what you want done and how you want it done. And you can really, going to these events helps you have the confidence to to sit down with these guys later on and put it into practice and tell them, hey, look, this is what I want. This is why. And, otherwise they're going to be dictating, and you're going to, you can lose your shirt if you're going to just go in by the seat of your pants and hire guys to come in and do this stuff and tell you what needs to be done.
So Francesco, your cousin ended up buying a deal when he went back to Jersey, correct?
Yeah. He partnered up with a friend of his and bought a deal. Yeah.
So that's amazing. That, I mean, in and of itself, right there, whatever investment in an education you're getting it all back. Let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors.
Gino and I are super excited to tell you about the audiobook version of The Honeybee, which was recently released.
The Honeybee tells the story of Noah, a disappointed, disaffected salesman who feels like his life is going nowhere until the day he has a chance encounter with a man named Tom Barnum, the beekeeper. In his charming, down-home way, Tom, the bee man, teaches Noah and his wife Emma how to grow their personal wealth using the lessons he learned from his beekeeping passion.
In the audio version, Gino and I sat down for an exclusive interview after each chapter where we elaborate on the stings we felt throughout the business, the importance of scaling up, and how we've been able to create multiple streams of revenue.
For more information and to get your copy of the audiobook, visit jakeandgino.com/honeybee.
All right, Francesco, I got some short answer questions here for you. So obviously you've done very well in your career and you've scaled up your side hustle of multifamily. What's one of your best habits for success and why?
I think it's time management. I'd say that's my biggest strength is, having a W-2 job, a commute, a 3-hour commute, a family, kids, having to manage all that and also manage, self-managing my properties. Time management is really important. You have to schedule everything out, make sure, your whole day is planned out and planned ahead. Every Sunday I'm going through my weekly schedule of what I need to do, what meetings are coming up, what's happening at my properties. So I think time management is one of the biggest keys for me.
I like that. What about your favorite book?
I have a few. I would say I like Think and Grow Rich. E-Myth is great. Blue Ocean Strategy. Those are some of the books.
Wow, really high quality books. I got Blue Ocean Strategy. I'm looking at it. It looks like a hard book to read. I keep pushing it off. I keep putting other books on top of that one. So that's definitely Jake loves that book. It's
a great book.
And not to piggy off, but you have a type of a Blue Ocean Strategy. What you're doing, you have the mom and pops. You have the deferred maintenance. You have sisters fighting. You have properties that are really neglected, and a lot of owners and a lot of people in residential real estate don't want to deal with that because they walk into your units and they're like, I don't like that color. I don't like the flooring. I don't like the cabinets, but you don't care because you're not living there. You're just trying to monetize an asset. And that's, I can see where you've got your strategy from Blue Ocean Strategy from Jake and Gino talking about mom and pops. So way to go.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. So there have been a lot of nuggets from this episode. I want to kind of go over a few, and Gino, I know you're going to add a bunch to it. So one was when Francesco first got started, he had someone to kind of give him guidance, right? To be able to give him that confidence to take that first step. And also, I think a really good thing there was he didn't do the work for them. It's really better to teach a man how to fish than to give him a fish, right? Because that way they eat for a lifetime versus a day. Another one is it really risky to go out there and do this, right? A ship is safe in the harbor, but is that what a ship is meant for? And how do you reduce risk? You go out there and get educated. Again, education is the only thing out there that can reduce risk and maximize upside. Think about that for a minute. And then you go out there and take action. You commit, you make it happen. Gino, what were some of your nuggets from this episode?
Well, for me, it's such a personal story because we're very similar backgrounds. We have very similar fixed mindsets when we got married. And then we I guess, embraced the growth mindset because we see that there's more to life than just going to a W-2 job. And it's, investing can be risky, but for me, it was challenging and it was fun. And refi and roll, I mean, no one knew what that was 10 years ago, at least in my world, right? So when I did it the first time, I was like, wow. And it's really just going out there and practicing what you're learning and getting better at it and not looking at it as a risk. What you're trying to do is you're trying to limit your downside risk. And how do you do that? Is the education and then taking that action, but always learning to grow. And as you can see, Francesco works for a great company. He's a really smart guy, but he's also supplementing that with surrounding himself with great people, surrounding himself with like-minded people, reading great books, constantly doing podcasts, constantly educating himself and constantly growing into the person that he wants to become. He's not happy with who he is right now, and he's always looking to get better. And I think that's what everyone who's listening on this podcast should do. Always think about getting better. Be happy with what you have right now. I can see that Francesco's really, you want to have the, I don't want to say charitable, but you really want to be grateful for what you have, right? But always look to be better and always look, because success is just, how you feel. Achievement is what you're getting, right? Be happy with the actions you're taking, not the results you're getting. That's one of the most important things that I want the listeners to take away from. Francesco's taking massive action. He's going to these events. He's buying these properties against everyone's wishes, and he's growing and he's getting better at it. So just go out there and continue to make it happen, continue to grow as a person, take full responsibility for what you're doing, and enjoy life.
I agree.
I like that. Francesco, how can the listeners get a hold of you?
So I'm in the Wheelbarrow Profits on Facebook, so you can check me out in the Facebook group, LinkedIn, Francesco Guarino. I'm on Instagram as well, so you can find me on a lot of social media.
All right. Well, Francesco, I want to thank you for being an amazing guest and sharing your Movers and Shakers story. If you want to be the next Movers and Shakers guest, guys, email me, josh@jakeandgino.com. And if you like the show, please leave us a review. Until next time, let's make it a Movers and Shakers week. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Francesco.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.